Hello, my name is April Landry, and we are doing a study on marriage. My audience is married couples from the ages of their upper 20s to their mid 40s, and the size of the group is about 10 to 12 people. Today we're going to talk about Song of Songs, also known as Song of Solomon, one of my favorite books in the Bible, because it depicts this great picture of passion between a husband and a wife in marriage. The verse we're looking at is chapter 2, verse 15. It says, "Catch for us the foxes, the little foxes that ruin the vineyards, our vineyards that are in bloom." Now, you may wonder exactly how this verse relates to marriage. I want to start off by looking at foxes. Look how cute he is. They're so cute when you first see them at a glance. They're so small you hardly notice them. But then as you start to look just a little bit closer, you start to see their behavior and how cunning and deceitful and sneaky they can be, and the destruction that they leave behind. It's the same for those little things in our marriages that we choose to ignore. I'm talking about those behaviors, those habits that start to creep in as the years go by. You don't quite notice them at first. Now, in this verse, it talks specifically about our vineyards that are in bloom, that the fox comes and destroys them while the vineyard's in bloom. Well, the same can be said for our marriages in its prime. I'm talking about those years beyond the newlywed years, maybe 7, 8 years plus, where the warm fuzzies have worn off and you're kind of starting to settle in and get comfortable in the marriage. That's when these things come up. So let's take a look at what some of the little foxes that are common in marriage. The first one I put on here is disrespect, and actually this kind of encompasses all of the little foxes because they all kind of lead to this feeling with your spouse. One of the real subtle ones is sarcasm, and I say that because a lot of us use that in our speech, in our everyday speech at work or with friends, and you just don't think anything much of it. In fact, we sometimes think it's funny to be sarcastic. But the reality is, if you really think about it, it doesn't really impact our spouses very well, and it can be very dishonoring to them. Unkindness, that's an obvious one. Nagging, no one likes to be nagged, no one likes to be parented. You didn't marry your mother or father, you're supposed to be partners. Criticism, judging, unthankfulness, lack of appreciation. Being taken for granted, that after so many years of being married, we sometimes forget to say please or thank you. And those things that our spouses do for us, whether it's fixing dinner or picking kids up from daycare or doing the dishes or cleaning the house, we take those things for granted, that they're obligations that our spouses need to do for us. But the reality is, it's just not true. And we do those things because we care about each other, we care about the family, and those things deserve some appreciation. Some other ones that I didn't mention are busyness. You don't want to take on too many hours at work. You can't be partnered with money and God, one master. And a lot of the times that happens, it starts off small, and next thing you know, you're missing time with your family and you're growing apart from your spouse. So that's another one that you really want to keep an eye on. God really did give us a good guide for our marriages with the Bible. It has so much to say about how we should treat one another. Many of these little foxes that we're talking about are addressed in the scriptures. For example, 1 Peter, the second chapter, verse 17, where we are told to show proper respect to everyone. There's that word, respect, again. In Colossians 4:6, we're told to let our conversations always be full of grace. Not sarcasm, not criticism, not judgment. Not to mention there are so many other verses. You guys have read, and we'll go over them more next week, in Corinthians, Galatians, that talk about marriage specifically, and husbands and wives, and how they specifically should treat each other. We're also warned by Paul in 2 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 11, in order that Satan might not outwit us, for we are not unaware of his schemes. So again, be alert. It goes on, 1 Peter 5:8-9. It tells us to be self-controlled and alert. Your enemy prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. The devil wants to devour our marriages. We're told to resist Satan. Stand firm in our faith. Stand firm in our marriage. Marriage is such a fragile thing, and God joined it together. So what therefore God has joined together, let no man separate. And once we make that promise, once we make that commitment, we're saying we're going to work together. We're going to partner together. We're going to become one flesh. And we're going to guard and protect our marriage from all those things that can break up a marriage. In Galatians 6:2-4, we're instructed to carry each other's burdens. If anyone thinks he is something when he is nothing, he deceives himself. Each one should test his own actions, and then he can take pride in himself, without comparing to himself somebody else. For each one should carry his own load. We are responsible. We need to pay attention to those little foxes. There's no room for the blame game in marriage. You can't point your finger at the other person, because oftentimes, you've got four pointing back at you, and you may be doing the exact same thing. And we're all in it together. You're a partnership. You need to carry those burdens together, handing them over to Christ jointly. And by doing so, you'll be giving him the opportunity to bless your marriage. Is there any questions? Okay, then let's pray.